Dennis Washira, a computer science student, and welcome to this TypeScript 101 series, event number 2, which will be looking at variables and data types in TypeScript. And we will be continuing from where we left last week. And if you have any question, kindly use the hard feature in the team so that you can raise your hand and you'll be at position of asking a question, or you can use the chat to make your question there, and I will respond as we continue with the session. So let me get started. So last week we talked about some basic concept on TypeScript. We described and saw the overview of where the TypeScript came on, the reason why TypeScript was developed, and also why types are a big deal when it comes to web development, more so who are using JavaScript. And one of those big deals is to counter this the absence of values, which is null and undefined, and also incomplete refactoring, and also to serve as a foundation of a great code authoring experience. And finally, we concluded by writing our first TypeScript code, where we installed TypeScript compiler. Then you are able to use the compiler to transpile our first function in Java in TypeScript, from TypeScript to JavaScript. Then we run that. We are able to see the output on JavaScript. So today we'll talk about variables and data types. So any programming language you come across, most of the time you have to learn the basic syntax of that language, then learn some variable and data types, which are relatively common to any programming language. The only difference comes when maybe declaring those variables, but data types, mostly they remain the same. And also, in any programming language, you learn some basic concept about functions, loops, then and also interfaces and objects when it comes to object-oriented languages. And TypeScript gives us that experience of working with objects and interfaces. We'll be able to cover that in our next topic, maybe session. And we want now to talk about the types in TypeScript. And the main benefit of TypeScript is that it enables you to add static types to your JavaScript code. And types place the static constraints on program entity, maybe the functions, variables, and property. And so that the compiler and the development tools can offer better verification and the assistance in development. And TypeScript static compile time type system closely models the dynamic runtime type system of JavaScript. And the static compile time type system enables you to accurately express the type relationship that are expected to exist where your program runs. And then you have those assumptions predefined by TypeScript compiler. And TypeScript types analysis occurs entirely at the compile time and earns no runtime overhead programs. And so this is what we're talking about. The TypeScript, it enables you to static typing to enforce constraints. Then we have the compile time type system, which models the JavaScript runtime behavior, and also to analyze the compile time with no runtime overhead. Like you are able to get to see the errors on the compile time rather than the runtime when running TypeScript code. And after that, we be able to now to how you declare variable on TypeScript. And in ECMAScript 2015, which is now the latest, the newest JavaScript, they added the let and the const keyword for variable declaration in JavaScript, which eliminated some of the problem associated with the var keyword that was previously the version of declaring variables in JavaScript. And this change make it possible to declare variable with the block level scope and prevent you from declaring the same variable multiple times. So, and TypeScript encourages you to use let and const keyword for a variable declaration, and a quick difference between now let and const. The difference between them is that let declaration can be done without the initialization, whereas const declaration are always initialized with a value. And once you declare a const, or once a const is assigned to a value, the value can never be the value cannot be reassigned again. So we'll be able to explore this on our playground, which is Visual Studio Code, and see how you use these keywords to declare your variables in TypeScript. And also now we can talk about just a minute. We can now talk about the variables in TypeScript. And so types and subtypes on TypeScript. All types in TypeScript are subtype of if you are joining the meeting, you can mute yourself, please. Whoever is joining the meeting, kindly make sure you mute. Okay, let me try to mute them on my side. Just a minute, please. Just a minute. Okay, so let's continue. We want to talk about now types in TypeScript, and any type, all types in TypeScript are subtype of a single top type called any, and the any type is the one type that can represent any JavaScript value with no constraint. And all other types are categorized as primitive types. We have object types, then type parameter, then finally we have null and undefined. And primitive type, these are Boolean numbers, string. I know most of you, you have encountered these types. And also, we have, despite having Boolean number string, we have enum, so enum and void. So these are type exist purely to indicate the absence of value, such as a function with no return value. So the void is mostly used to indicate the absence of value. Then we have null and undefined, which are mostly only the values of types can be different using the null and undefined. And about objects, so we'll have a whole session about objects and classes. So I will not talk about objects this moment, but we can go now on a VS Code and be able to play along with these primitive types and be able to see how you can use them to have a TypeScript code using these primitive types on a VS Code. So let me stop sharing my PPT and share my VS Code. So I hope you can see my screen. And the last time we did a very simple hello world function in TypeScript. And this is the code that we wrote last time. It was just a function that is returning a name that you are passing as a parameter on that function. So if I can just rerun this code, you have to use the first of all to transpile my code, then run the index, the JS file. So I use TSC. It will be able to transpile my code to JavaScript. Then I use a node index.js, and I'll be able to get the output of this function. So this might be tiresome at some point. Anytime, like every time you want to create, maybe anytime you change something on your file, you need to retranspile your code so that you can be able to get the correct output of your transpiled TypeScript code to JavaScript. So there are easier way uh, to do this instead of most of the time running the TSC so that you can transpile. And I want to introduce something, a dev dependency called TSX, which is called TypeScript execute. And you can see it stands for TypeScript execute. And it's a Node.js enhancement to run TypeScript. So it does the same thing as node. So if you do like node file.js, you run that node, so that file. So you do the same by doing tsx file.tx. So you are doing the same. So tsx is just an alias to node and use it the same way you can use a node. And the most important feature I want to consume on this tsx library, it's a watch mode. So watch mode, it enables you to rerun your file whenever you save your file. So you don't need to keep on opening a terminal, running the TypeScript compiler so that you can be able to compile this. So you can be able now to consume this TSX, and it will be doing that work for you when you enable this watch mode under the package.json file. So let's do this on our file, on this project now, so that we can have now an easy way of transpiling our code. So let me delete this index file. And for you to understand how to install or to get started with any library, you just go to get started, and you'll be able to see a quick start. So a quick start is a way now you'll be able to install that library. So like for instance, if you want now to install that library, this project installation, you can use npm, which is now npm install. It's a dev dependency, so you have to include this fragment, which is -d, then tsx. So for me, I'm using pnpm, so I'll copy the command for pnpm. So let me go back to my VS Code. So, and if you realize we don't have a package.json, which is now which manages the library and the function, the library version of any library you have installed on your project. So we need to initialize a package.json file, and the way you do that, you do using your package node packager, and the node packager which you are using, maybe npm, pnpm, or yarn. So I'm using npm. So let me zoom out a little bit. So clear, and so I use pnpm to initialize a package JSON on my project. So npm init, so I have a package JSON, yes, this one, and it will now be able to, it contains the metadata of your project and the version of your libraries you have installed on this project. So once now I have this package JSON, I can now install my TSX library. So I really copy paste the code. Oh, sorry, I just copied the wrong code. So let's install the TSX. So it's pnpm and then fragment D to indicate is a dev dependency. So whenever I push this code to production, these dev dependencies will not be pushed to production. So it's TSX. Then let's wait for some minute to install this TSX. So as the dev dependency being installed, we can also see like when you run TypeScript compiler at the command prompt by using the TSX, the TSC command, you remember like we did not pass any parameter. Like we were just only compiling the file without any parameter. But the compiler has some default settings that guides it on how to generate the index, the JS file. But you can modify those parameters the way you want to generate your index, your JS files, and you use that by command line, or you can use the utility JSON file, which is called a tsconfig file. And this file contains some options, and there are so many options, but you just need to understand or to use what you want. And the way to have that config, tsconfig file in your file, we use now the same our package manager, which is pnpm. Then I will use Just a minute. So I use the TSC, then dash init to initialize that config file, and we can now be able to go through this file and see how our compiler transpile our code. It's a bunch of most about the language environment. So let me zoom out a little bit so that you can be able to see all these options that the TypeScript compiler as when we're transpiling the code. So by default, the compiler compiles the code with the ESX 2016. So you can see here that it sets the JavaScript language version for emitted JavaScript and include the compatibility and what and the libraries declaration. Then we have the module, so it uses common JS. Remember, we have two types of JS. We have the common JS and ES6 module. So by default, TypeScript compiler, it generates a common JS version of JavaScript. Then other options, it's like ES module interrupt, it's set to true. So this was it's emit additional JavaScript to is support importing like common JS module. Then we have false consistency casing file names. So you'll be able to see explanation of each options that the compiler uses. You can see the source map. All these are commented. So the only thing you need to do is to uncomment the compiler option, what you want to your compiler to do. Like I can uncomment this out directory. It is specify the output. So you have that independency of saying where you want your code to be praised when it's being transpiled. So by default, it output the JS file on the root directory, but we'll see how you can modify this and have a simple and well-organized root folder organization in your code. Then we can have another option, which is let me see here. So about we have a module, we have this root directory. So root directory, it is the where now you specify the root folder within your source file. So I can specify where my TypeScript compiler will check the files to transpile and leave the other. So I can decide to have another file here, and now in that file folder, I will be pressing all the TypeScript code, and whenever I run TSC, it will look on this folder only and be able to compile everything that is that old folder and exclude anything that is not in this root directory. So there are a bunch of them. You can go through them. We not go through all of them, but I will comment which are most important. So let me uncomment the move some options that we don't need on our compiler options. So let me delete that and replace it with a new compiler option. It's the same compiler options, but with fewer options that I want my code to be compiled. So the target, remember, at the end ES6 2016, but I'm deciding to use ES6 2022. And if you delete that and you write ES6, TypeScript has an intelligence feature that is able to predict what you want to write. So you can see now we have the target of our JavaScript. We have 2015, 2016. So these are the latest, the ECMAScript version of JavaScript. So for now, I want to use 2022, or I can design to use the latest one, which is 2016. Then the module. So the module is the module code to be generated. So I want by now it's node 16, but I can change that to the latest node. So if I delete that and try to type node, you'll be able to see some common module type. We have node 16, we have node next, we have common JS and none. So I can decide to use maybe node next or node 16 or common JS, but let me use node 16. It's node 16. Then the root directory. Remember, we said root directory. It is where you want your file, the TS file, to be tracked. So I want now to change the folder structuring of this project. Kindly, if my screen is not visible, let me know. And I hope my VS Code is visible well. Somebody confirm. Oh, okay. So let's continue. These are now our TS config JSON file, where now we specify how our compiler will be able to transpile our code to. We are telling the compiler, please use ES6 2024, the latest one. So use the module, the node environment, node 16. Then when transpiling my code, just look only on this directory, which is the root directory, the source folder. Since we don't have that folder in our root directory, I have to create this folder, which is now I just right click the new folder and write my TS file, the source folder there. So when now the TypeScript will be compiling, it will only be checking any file that is under this source folder. So whenever now if you want your account to be transpiled, you make sure you need it to be in this source folder. Then we are saying the resolution module, let be node 16, then out directory. So out directory, it is the output of your TypeScript when it is being compiled. So the output we want is to be on the dist folder. So automatically, if that folder will not be created, TypeScript will create that folder, which is dist. So we can create that folder here, or we can just leave it because TypeScript will automatically create that folder if it does not exist. Then we have ES module interrupt. That's just an additional JavaScript to support the import of common JS module, which is we use like the import compatibility. Then we have strict, which is set to true. So strict to true, it means like it will be able to check the strict type checking. So it will be able to check whether you have typed your code, and it will be able to log the error that you have not typed this function, you have not typed this variable. And then now skip type check. So the skip type check, it enables you to tell the TypeScript not to type check any file that mostly on environment variables, the secret that you have set on environment variables. So you are telling it to do that. So we have now an additional options in our compiler option, which is include and exclude. So exclude, it's work the same with hand in hand with root directory. So we are saying while transpiling my code, check on the source folder, everything that is on that source folder, root source folder, then any child file under that source folder which ends with TS. So we don't want to check every file, but we want to check file that is being saved with TS. So any file that will be saved with another extension, the compiler will not check that file. So it will only compile file that is named with this extension.ts. So any file that is under this source folder, it will be able to include on our compiler. And we want to tell the compiler to exclude. So we don't want to compile the node modules. Remember, these are libraries that we are using. We don't need to compile that. So we explicitly say telling the compiler, hey, don't compile anything that is on these node modules. And by that, we are set with our TS config. I don't know the error where it's coming from, but we'll be able to solve that as we go on. So let's go back to our package.json. So this is now another important file whenever you are working with any language and mostly in frameworks. So frameworks, it will be able now to keep track of your installed library, whether a dev dependency or a normal dependency. Like we can see now, I can see on my project, I have a dev dependency, which is TSX, which is now I want to use that so that I can use the watch mode on that feature on the TSX. Then we can have script that will enable us to start our projects instead of coming here on command prompt and keep on every time running the TSX, running the node index. So we want to write some scripts to enable us to increase the productivity and also to have that uh, the experience of not every time you need to write the commands in the command prompts to run your your TypeScript code. Then this is the name of my project. So as I said, the package JSON mostly contains the metadata of your project, and it is most important file in any of our framework you work with. So I want now to edit this script, and so that you can be able now to consume and see the power of a package JSON when you install it on your project. I want to have some options on the script so that you can be able to run this. And the first script I want to have is a dev script. So instead of test, I want to rename it to dev. Then this dev, I want it to tell it use TSX. Then under TSX, use the feature which is watch mode. Watch. Then where do you want to watch? So you want to watch any file that is under this source folder. So I will have to add the directory of this source folder, which is now SR, the source folder. Sorry, the SRC folder. Under that folder, I want you just to track the index.ts file. So with that now, if I run now this dev, I'll be able now to watch to run to compile the index on my project, and also to have the watch mode. The watch mode will be able to rerun this file whenever I make any changes. So with that, I want to have also another script here. So let me put a comma and maybe and that build script, but you might not use it right now, but it's very useful when you want to bring your project into production. You need to build your project into a smaller version. Then you use the TSC instead of TSX. Then after building, you can use the start node on this to start anything that is after compiling your code. You can use the start script to start your compiled code. And with that, I think we are done with setting up our package.json. So the only thing we need, remember, we have specified our index file to be under what? Source. So remember, this index is not in the source folder, it is in the root folder. So we need to drag this to our source folder. So let me drag that to our source folder, and you can see now some of the errors we had, it has gone away because we have now strictly like corrected. We have seen that our index file is under our source folder. Then we have our package.json, which has some scripts, then tsconfig. So anytime you want to add compiler option, you just come in here and add any compiler instruction you want to add. Kindly, whoever is joining and not muting. Elias. Okay, thank you. We are done. Elias, you have not muted, please. Okay. We have done having our compiler option. We are done having our package.json. We have installed our TSX that will enable us not only to watch, but also like to enable us like not to keep on repeating, transpiling our code each time on our command prompt. So let me drag my command prompt here and now see the power of this TSX. So I will not now be using the TSC as usual. The way I was using like TSC, then index dot ts to transpile my code. So I've done away with this, but now I'll be using now the dev dependency, which is TSX. So under the way to use TSX, I'll be using now under this script we have written on this package.json. So I will now use now I'm sure most of you have worked with framework. So we will now be able to run this project using the command pnpm, then run. So the node package, the action you want to do, then the script you want to run, which is dev. So what is dev doing? So dev is calling the TSX, our dev dependency, adding a watch mode. And where are you watching? So under this index.tsx. So if I now run this, you will see like our function. We have some errors. Let me see. So npm run dev internal module. So let's try to debug this and see where you have gone wrong. So module not found. So hello index.css. So what might be wrong with the code? So let's see. It's current the root folder, then src, then index.tsx. Let's see. So error module not found. I think we might need to rerun the compiler, the TSC, so that can be able to take the new changes that we changed from our default compiling options. Remember, it uses the default, but we need now to enforce these new changes. So I will have to use the keyword TSC so that they can be able to take the new changes. So TSC, and with that, I think, yeah, it has now, if you don't see any error, you are sure like your TS compiler has taken the new changes, and you can see if you notice here, it has a new folder that we saying like if you don't have the dist file folder, it will automatically create that file. And if you delete that file and now run the command to run your code, sometimes it keeps on giving that error, but you need to have you need to explicitly have that folder created on your root folder. So let me run the TSC for the last time so that it can take all the changes, create the new dist file, and then let me use now pnpm run dev. Still we have an error, so an internal cannot find module, a row one index.js that is being important. So let's see what the error. So we have this function, which is just greet, and at this file, we want to transfer it to this function, this file. So maybe the error might be in our package.json, which is dev TSX watch mode. Source index. So under my index, before we write any code, let me just console anything so that you can be able to see whether our file is being console.log, then a row out. Control C, pnpm run dev. Let's see whether it will be able to generate. Still, we have an error, which is we are not importing any library, so I don't know why, what is happening. So TSX.
Hello.
Yes.
The folder that you're trying to run the index.js, index.ts is in the source, right?
Yeah, it's in the source.
Is it a directory issue?
I think, yeah, it would be a directory issue, but it should be like that, the src. Let me see on my package. So it's the root directory, then the src, then, or it should be .ts. You see here we have written TSX instead of TS. So I think that's where the error was. So it was not finding this index.ts. I end some typo here and added some X at the end of that file. So let's see whether our code will run. Let me go back to my command prompt and run pnpm run dev. That's nice. You can see now our code is running correctly. So let me zoom out a little bit and go back to our index and maybe try to write another console.log line. So if I write console.log, you'll be able to see on the command prompt, it has the watch mode, right? It is rerunning anytime I make a change on the file. So we'll not now have that work of coming back to the command prompt, recompiling our code so that you can be able to see the output. So the TSX is doing its thing on a background and to be able to rerun your code every time it sees a changes in your file. So let me complete this, maybe console.log, then a simple string, so welcome, and you'll be able to see now after compiling, it will be able to get the output of that file. So with this now, we are able now to use this, the TSX, the watch mode, and our file to use now to make sure like every time we are writing our code, TSX is able to track our code and recompile or retranspile your code back to JavaScript. So that was a concept I was I was trying to demonstrate, and you can see now we have a good folder structuring in your code. We have the source, we have the modules, and we have the dist. So most of the time, every code, like because we indicated on our options, like to make sure like every file that is under source. So anytime now we are making a new file, we need to make sure like it's inside our root directory source folder. Then anything that is being transpiled is being stored on this dist folder. And now we can continue to have some variable declaration on JavaScript, on TypeScript. And let me go back to the index. And I want the same to show how you now to organize your code where I don't want to declare variables under this file. Remember our TS, we end this module dissolution option, not module. This let me show you this the ES module interrupt. This additional JavaScript to ES import of common JS module. So I want you to show how you can use this feature to import, excuse me, to import this to this feature to use it on your TypeScript code. So I will not type my variables here. I'll just create a new file under this source folder, and I can call it variables. Variables.ts. It's a file. So under this, now where I want to use to declare some variables in JavaScript, in TypeScript, and I want to use the export keyword on TypeScript or JavaScript. We have this export keyword. Then we have we use const and let to declare variables. So let me use const. Then I want to use an arrow function. We'll be able to run about the arrow function later on. But for now, let me use the arrow function. Then I open this. It's a function that is being exported, so I can be able to use this function outside anywhere in my project when you use the export. So that means I can be able to use this file and I can import it to this folder, to this file. So it is having some error saying like we have not indicated the name of the file, so we need to include that on our variable. So it's variables. Set variable, yes, variables. You can see the error is gone, but I want this to have this. So let me declare some data types to use the data types in JavaScript, in TypeScript. I will use the let keyword, or you can use let or const. Remember var was the previous old JS version. I think it's not supported on mostly on the latest browsers. So I advise you not to use var at any point. So you either use let or const. So let me now use let, declare a number. I can say maybe number value. Which is 10. Then I have a name. So let name maybe my first name be John. Then maybe I want to have a boolean. So remember, a boolean is that true or false. So I can have my gender to be a boolean. So which is let gender be a boolean. We shall see how we use this. So I've used boolean. So this is how you declare variables on normal JavaScript way. It's either it's the same way on TypeScript, but now we need to statically type these variables so that you can be able to differentiate which is to make sure like whenever you are using this variable, whenever it should know like I'm expecting a number, not a string, not a boolean. So under this now at the end here. So remember our last our previous session, we talked about how you type your code. So you use the full colon, then the data type you want to type your variable with. Like the name, it's of type string, then the function we are returning is type of a string. So under our variables, this number, I will have to type it with the data type, which is number. So I might need to change this to maybe or the same number value. Then I want to type it now with number. So I want this to make sure like anytime number value is a number. Then first name, it should be a string. So let me type this with a string. Then gender, you can see it's true or false. So that's a boolean. So we'll type that with boolean. And that's how you declare a variable using the let, and it's the same way the const, then the variable name, then the type of that variable, then you can initialize it with any value you want. Like I've initialized this number value with a value 10. The first name I've initialized it with John. Then the gender I've initialized it with a true. So this is easy if you are coming from a JavaScript world, but if you have no idea, like, or in ever not interacted with JavaScript, it might be tricky for you, but don't worry, we'll catch up and be able to understand everything as we go on. I can now maybe console log these values on our console, and let me use console, like maybe console log that value, then console log the first name, and console log the gender. Dot log gender, then add. So remember, I used the keyword export. So that means this file I can be able to use everywhere in my project. Kindly, whoever is unmuted, Shadrach. Okay, so I said the export keyword, it enables you to reuse any file in your project wherever you want. So I want to use now this variable file to our index. So I just want to come at the top here. Maybe let me comment out this. And now import this file. Remember at our TS config, we are using this feature, the ES module interrupt. Like you want us to enable like to import this the common JS way of importing files. So I used now here, I've used here export. So I want to import that file here now. Like import, then it's named variables, which is a variable, and I'm importing it from the root directory. So the root directory, then the name of that variable, the name of that file, which is variables. Then I can now call the variables, the file, which is this, and you'll be able now to see this output on our console. And if you are keen enough, you can see here by already the TSX has done its thing by rerunning our code whenever we save or we change anything on our code. You can see now it has already saved this. And if you want to make sure like it's the one you are is outputting the correct thing, you can try to change something here, maybe to add a string here. So a string there, maybe this is a number that maybe 10. And if you have a comma there, you'll be able to see like it will transpire and output the correct thing there. And I think we are past time, and I don't want this session to be that long. So I think we shall stop at that point. And next week, we'll be able to continue with working around with variables. You can see how you can concatenate those variables if it's maybe the first name, second name, then something like that. But what we have done today, it's folder structuring in TypeScript. You then the compiler option, like you don't need to to use the default compiler option. You have the option to change anything to whatever you want. And I think this is it's not a must. I use the this, so it can be anything, like it can be any name of that the file you want to your output to be stored. The same with source file, the source folder. It's not a key one, like you must use src. You can name it whatever you want, but most of the time you find it like src, and these are the most like a global thing that people use. So it's you are not tied to rename your file, your folder, how you want. Also on the package.json, you can name like even this, the dev, like you can name it whatever you want. Like how do you want me to call to rename this? Someone in the chat box, in the chat to drop. So you can rename this anything. So it's you are not tied to the same or the what I've done, but it's you find most of the devs use this as a global way of naming your script, folder structuring. Like you have a source folder, you have a dist folder, you have your node modules there, and like that. And I think I'm done for today, unless anyone has a question about today's session. Any question up to there? So for you, if you are not sure how to install the TSX, let me drop the link on the chat. So TSX getting started. This is the documentation you will follow. It's just a simple way to, you just need to understand what is going on. Like you need a package JSON. So a package JSON is a meta, it contains the metadata of your project. So it contains the name of your project, contains the version, the description, and the entry point of your project, which is index.js, which is under the dist folder. Then we have what? The script. So the scripts are mostly when you want to compile your code, maybe to run your code in dev mode. Mostly this is used for dev mode. Build is when you want to bring your project into production. So you need to use now the standard way, the TypeScript compiler, to compile your code. But also now we have the start mode. So the start is always used in the production to compile your code. So any question up to there? Okay, so silence means no question, and without adding anything, I think the meeting we shall end at that point, and see you next week, same time. We'll be able to continue with our where we left. Thank you, guys, and see you next week.